Senator Joe Manchin put the brakes on the $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. So now he wrote, of course, in the Wall Street Journal, because where else would he write? He said that the Senate should take a strategic pause on advancing the $3.5 trillion tax and spending package, touted, of course, by the Democrats, as well as, of course, Joe Biden. This contains a lot of Joe Biden's policy priorities, and yet has hit a filibuster. Filibuster is guaranteed, and now it's a reconciliation bill. That's why it's a reconciliation bill. But you still need Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, Mark Warner, and other corporate Democrats to approve this. So now Manchin claims that the price tag is just too high. $3.5 trillion, it's too much. Too much money. He also said the effects on the federal debt might be too great, and the risks of inflation could create a financial harm for Americans. Or, in reality, his corporate donors. And so he has called on Democrats, unsurprisingly, to slim down the bill. Now, originally, the reconciliation package crafted by Senator Bernie Sanders, who's the, of course, chairman of the Budget Committee, was like $6 trillion. So it's already pared down quite a bit. And yet, here's Manchin saying, oh no, it's too expensive. We need to make it smaller. We need to make it slimmer. Or basically do less. That's what it is. And so here's what he wrote. While some have suggested this reconciliation legislation must be passed now, I believe that making budgetary decisions under artificial political deadlines never leads to good policy or sound positions. What he's saying basically is, my donors need more time to make as much money as possible and to lobby successfully other members of Congress to turn against it. And not only that, but run an advertising blitz that will turn the American public away from supporting this infrastructure package. That's what they're going to try to do. They just need money to create the ads, to figure out what works best, to get the American people away from supporting this. Because guess what? The majority of Americans support this infrastructure bill. They don't give a damn about the debt. They don't give a damn about the deficits. They're like, infrastructure, yes, let's do it. Let's do the infrastructure. The country's falling apart. So now here's the thing about Joe Manchin. He's a puppet. He's a mouthpiece in which the donors speak through. If you check close enough, I bet you there's probably a hand up his ass, okay? Or a pull cord on his back. You just pull it, and he says, the debt is too high. The debt is too high. We cannot leave so much of the deficit for our children. That's it. Here's what he said, quote, I've always said, if I can't explain it, I can't vote for it, and I can't explain why my Democratic colleagues are rushing to spend $3.5 trillion. Well, I've got an answer for that. Because we need an asshole. Childcare, paid leave, free community college, expanding Medicare to include dental and vision and hearing, climate change. We need it now. And honestly, we need to go much further than what we have. I realize it's a lot of money, right? $3.5 trillion. But then again, we gave $6 trillion to the banks in liquidity. That's what the Fed injected during the coronavirus pandemic. And not to mention the trillions of dollars in tax cuts. The $2 trillion wasted in 20 years in Afghanistan. Come on. This is a drop in the bucket compared to endless warfare. Every year, we put over nearly $800 billion into the Pentagon. For what? For what? While we're falling apart at home, we were out there trying to rebuild other countries. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Look what happened in Afghanistan. No, people don't care about that. People care about real results, real policies that are going to help their lives and rebuild their communities. And also dampen the effects of climate change. We can't get rid of climate change. We can't stop it. We can't stop the rate of climate change at this point. What we can do is mitigate. What we can do is reduce carbon emissions, go carbon neutral as soon as possible, and basically learn how to adapt until we can somehow find a way to take the carbon back out. The IPCC report basically says, yeah, we're kind of screwed. But we still have to do something. We still have to do something. And I talk about climate change because this is one of the major issues with Joe Manchin specifically. Okay? But anyway, now, before I get to that, so this asshole, he says, no. I'm going to work with Republicans who all hate this, and I'm going to work for my donors who also hate this. Now, Manchin's op-ed came a day after he delivered a similar warning shot at a little noticed event hosted by the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce, not only in West Virginia, but of course the National Chamber of Commerce, hates this, hates infrastructure. They love the physical infrastructure in the bipartisan bill, right? Which, of course, hands over public assets to private corporations. So, that is the asset recycling provision that is in this. And they love the more investments in, fossil fuel related things that are in that bipartisan bill. They only want that when they do not want the reconciliation bill. That's their priority. Okay. Now, in that little meeting, right? The senator cited the uncertainty created by the combination of the coronavirus, the tumultuous withdrawal in Afghanistan, and the economic threat posed by inflation, as he made the case for his colleagues to step back and see what happens. Funny you should mention that. See what happens. See what happens, right? What's going to happen if Democrats don't push this bill? They're going to lose. They don't pass this, they're going to lose. You know why? That's what happens when you don't deliver, when you promise and you promise. And the American people have given you a majority. The White House, the House, and the Senate, even though it's a slim majority, they still gave you a majority, and you decide not to do anything. You sit on your hands and go, oh, filibuster, great. Joe Biden, what are you doing? Joe Biden's like, oh, filibuster, it's fine. I want to keep the filibuster. Keep the filibuster. Yeah. That guy's, Joe Manchin is wrecking your legacy. He is wrecking your policy proposals, and you are going to lose. You're going to lose. You have to be tough on Joe Manchin. You got to come for his donors and rebuke your own. Do the thing that you did on Afghanistan, Joe Biden, and this is for Biden. Be strong. Be stubborn and say, no, we are going to get rid of the filibuster. We are going to get my priorities passed. And we are going to do the Build Back Better plan. And yes, I do have to remember Kyrsten Sinema as well. Mark Warner, the other corporate Democrats as well. They can all be pressured. They can all be pressured. But you have to hit them at their weakest. You have to hit them at the donors. So, that said, if we don't, the Democrats will be viewed as too weak and feckless to do the things the American people voted for them to do. As I said before, this is incredibly popular. One more, another quote here from Manchin. He said, everything has changed, saying the spending envisioned by the Democrats in the package is not anything we need immediately. We don't need it now. Oh, we don't need it immediately. I can wait. Climate change. That's in the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. You know what's happening right now? New York is underwater. California's on fire. The 1,000-year storms that were 1,000-year storms. There's a reason they called them 1,000-year storms. They're happening pretty much every year now. Every month, seems like. Again, there's no stopping climate change, but there are things that we can do to stop it from getting worse, and it will get worse each day we decide to not do anything. And the most modest proposals in this framework are good, but they're not even close to what we need, which is a Green New Deal. But even so, that is way too much for Manchin, these modest proposals. Okay? And of course, we know exactly why. He's got financial interests in the status quo. Now, I'm going to go to here to a report in The Intercept. It's a new report written by Daniel Boguslaw. Here's what he writes about Manchin. Quote, though Manchin's motivations are often ascribed to the conservative, coal-friendly politics of West Virginia, it is also the case that the state's senior senator is heavily invested in the industry and owes much of his considerable fortune to it. For decades, Manchin has profited from a series of coal companies that he founded during the 1980s. His son, Joe Manchin IV, has assumed leadership role in the firms, and the senator says his ownership is held in a blind trust. Yet between the time he joined the Senate and today, Manchin has reportedly grossed more than $4.5 million from those firms, according to financial disclosures. He also holds stock options in EnerSystems Inc., the larger of the two firms, valued between $1 and $5 million. And yes, that is why he makes nearly $500,000 a year. That's way more than his congressional salary from this stock. EnerSystems, by the way, purchases low-quality waste coal from other mines and resells it to power plants as fuel, while Farmington Resources, the other company, provides support activities for mining and holds coal reserves in the Fairmont area. So now, those are the two major companies here, and you're not going to be surprised that these companies have had some issues with pollution, obviously, and labor problems. So let's get to the labor issues, okay? So now the report cites unsafe working conditions for people working at those mines that support Manchin's companies. Since 2000, the Barrackville, West Virginia site, the second largest supplier to EnerSystems, has been cited for 5 accidents and 1 death, with when a heavy machinery operator was crushed by a bulldozer. Over the past 2 decades, the Barrackville refuse pile was cited and fined for more than 30 safety violations by the Mine Safety and Health Administration, or MSHA. The charges include unsafe equipment, unsafe material storage, dangerous lack of lighting, unsafe brakes, failure to adequately inspect electrical equipment, failure to maintain automatic warning devices, unsafe vehicle storage, failure to complete daily safety inspections, failure to mark hazardous chemicals, failure to maintain miner training records, and of course, failure to adequately train miners. That is just one company. And we're not done. EnerSystems' largest supplier of waste coal, as of 2019, is the Humphrey No. 7 mine. They had over 40 safety violations recorded with MSHA since 2000. These include failure to safely control dust, failure to maintain adequate vehicle brakes, failure to correct equipment defects, failure to safely maintain power lines, failure to safely store loose hazardous material, failure to maintain adequate firefighting equipment, which in a coal mines explode, there are fires, and you don't have fire equipment. And to come around on that one, failure to properly maintain flammable liquid storage. Come on. And not only that, but the mine has also seen fatalities, 2 of them. First, when a worker died after falling from a coal barge. The second is when a worker was crushed to death by a coal car. So, Jesus. And that's not all. That's just worker safety. Then there's the pollution to the area. The Barrackville mine was cited by the Environmental Protection Agency in 2018 and 2019 for failure to file quarterly reports on the effluent discharged during the process of coal extraction. When the mine did file in 2020, it reported levels of the toxic heavy metal manganese exceeding Clean Water Act limits by over 600%. That's a lot of manganese. And in case you're wondering what exposure to manganese does, it has been linked to neurological and fertility impairments and the deaths of infants, killing babies. Thought they were so pro-life. The Buffalo Creek, into which the Barrickville mine discharges, is listed by the EPA as impaired by over a dozen different heavy metals. And not the good kind of heavy metal. 2009, the Humphrey No. 7 mine pumped wastewater into a toxic holding pool where it was then released into Dunkard Creek. The creek feeds into the Monongahela River, where the waste pool discharge helped eliminate almost all life in a 40-mile stretch of river, leading to a multi-million-dollar settlement for Clean Water Act violations. No life. It killed everything in a 40-mile stretch. Everything in the river, dead, gone. As for climate change, well, obviously, burning coal is pretty terrible for the climate, bad for the environment. And, waste coal, well, waste coal happens to be worse. But thanks to Manchin's business interests, and of course, him being elected to governor of West Virginia, he actually codified burning waste coal and then classified it as, get this, alternative energy. Oh, burning waste coal counts as alternative energy. Amazing. This practice not only spews tens of thousands of tons of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, but the combustion chambers also produce a solid, non-aerosolized byproduct, coal ash. And there are many other issues with coal ash as well. Not surprising, Manchin fought against Obama-era regulations to limit that coal ash, as well as EPA rules limiting mercury and aerosolized acid emissions from power plants. But as I mentioned before, he makes a ton of money from this, from Enersystems. And that's not counting the millions he gets in campaign donations from the oil and gas industry and the coal industry. And by the way, he's supposed to be a Democrat, right? He's funded by Republican donors. It may not seem like much, but he got a $1,500 donation from Fox Corp. That is the Fox News, the company that owns Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, and he's probably gotten a lot more from other Republican donors as well. As far as corporations go, again, he has received contributions from Pfizer, T-Mobile, Nucor, Honeywell, and Herbalife. Many of them, of course, might have interests that would be challenged by some of the provisions inside of this $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. Alongside investment in renewable energy, the bill would also attempt to raise corporate tax rates to 28% from 21%. Manchin previously has endorsed a 25% corporate tax rate. You know what it was under Obama? 35%. 35%. Corporate taxes keep getting lower and lower and lower, and you wonder why they got all the money and the working class doesn't. I thought it was supposed to trickle down. No, it doesn't trickle down. It never trickles down. Never, because they don't want it to, and it wasn't designed to. They want to hold on to their fortunes. And look, we have a government, that, of billionaires that pay millionaires to screw over working class Americans and lie to them to get the vote against their own interests. And that's what's happening in West Virginia. And by the way, not just in West Virginia, all over the country. Everywhere corporate Democrats and Republicans have power. So generally, everywhere. This is the corruption. This is what we're talking about. This is why Joe Manchin is against this. It doesn't have anything to do with debts and deficits. It has everything to do with the donors. What we need, fight the donors. We fight the politicians all day, but they're just mouthpieces. And that's what they are. Always have been. What we need is a resurgence of a strong labor union in this country. A labor movement, a real labor movement. And in order to get that, we need a strong mutual aid network to go along with that push. We also need politicians inside to work inside of the halls of Congress, of course, and activists outside. And the whole point of that all working together is to either remove or neutralize Joe Manchin and the rest of the corporate Democrats. And of course, more importantly, to work us towards neutralizing and eliminating money in politics. That is the ultimate enemy here. We got to get rid of the money. For God's sakes, get rid of the money. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.